Good morning. Welcome to the Auckland Unitarian Church, a place that has been our spiritual home for 118 years. Not all of us have been here that long. I would especially welcome any visitors, and I hope you'll find encouragement and friendship here. Some people may be scratching their heads when they see the strange topic for the sermon down in the bulletin today. I didn't take into account when I prepared my sermon that there was major events happening in America, and so about Wednesday I started a drastic rewrite of several parts of the service. And we also, in welcoming you, invite you to join in the discussion that follows at the end of the service. The sermon will be leading into it. We'll be raising questions about the election, and we would like you to share your views on it. I'm only doing a very brief sermon. Lots of the work can be done by you. And then we invite you also to share in a cup of coffee after the service. Welcome. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. This candle looks more like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I light this candle as a symbol of our life together, and I invite you to join with me in the words of our covenant on the service sheet. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is the sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each other. Let's join in hymn number 188, and this is a round, so could we all sing the first time through in unison, and then in the second time through, could the people on this side start and the people on this side join in, and so on for two more verses. Now, don't make any apologies for having a Christmassy song coming up next. This is about the third time, I think, that I've stretched Christmas through into the second Sunday in January, and I'm glad to see the decorations still up, because I wanted us to listen to Snoopy's Christmas Carol, which is a really political comment, and so it's quite appropriate for election time. It was a comment in the First World War. My grandfather and his generation were facing horrors of war that had not been known before. Tanks had been invented, people could be attacked from the sky, and a large number of countries were involved. And yet one Christmas day, there was a rather amazing bit of disobedience, a protest, I suppose, by the soldiers on both sides, many of whom did not believe in the war, and it began with the German soldiers singing Christmas carols, and then the soldiers on the two sides of the line started sharing presents, and it was an amazing day, and it's part of the what I feel is an appropriate reaction to the American debacle of a president going mad. Sometimes all of us can see through it and object and say and call for a saner world. And that was what this song was doing in a rather poetic way. Apologies for getting myself out of order and not reading the Bible lesson first. But this is the reading which I have chosen from the book of Job. It is part of the most argumentative book in the Bible. It is an argument about the religion of his day, and it's one man against the rest. If you've ever got into an argument over religion, you'll probably find that your arguments are one of the dozens there in the book of Job. It's a fictitious story, but it tells a lot of truth about the way we respond to disasters. It's about a good man who had all kinds of disasters happen to him, one after another. And at the end of it, he says he wishes he had never been born. It's a startling thing to say in his time, but it was how he felt. And 3 of his friends took him to task for not respecting what God had done. They blamed God for all these disasters that had fallen him. And Job stood his ground and said, "That is not a way to help someone who has just lost everything." To quote from those verses from the book of Job, "I have heard many such things. Miserable comforters are you all. I could also talk as you do if you were in my place. I could join words together against you and shake my head at you, but I would encourage you with my mouth, and the solace of my lips would ease your pain." And now let's sing our Koha hymn number 29. We're really getting things a bit out of order. I put my apologies. I forgot, because we had no children's talk. We normally, at that point in the service, invite people to come forward and light a candle for their joys and concerns. And so I invite you to do that now, to share your joys and concerns with the rest of us.
Kia ora koutou. My name is Rachel. This is a candle of joy for the Christmas decorations. Now, I was led to believe that if you leave your Christmas decorations up beyond the 6th of January, witches will come. So I'd like to welcome all the witches, and also note that I understand that in Scotland, 400 years after witch burnings, the witches are all being pardoned because that was bullshit.
Hi, I'm Clay. It's a husband-wife duo. Not as funny, but I like this candle in gratitude for the principles that we promote as Unitarians, all of which have been violated in the last week in America, every one of them. And so I give thanks for the UUA in America, who without reservation made an extremely strong statement condemning what happened, naming names, challenging us to do better. And we may be small, but we're an important voice. And we shouldn't become what all too many of us were for the last 4 years, bystanders. And if we think we can avoid it here, I haven't seen much in the media, but there was a Trump rally this weekend. People gathered out there and with their signs supporting Trump and marching up and down Queen Street. So we are not exempt, and our voice is needed here as well as in America.
I'm Vivian. I've got 3 joys. One is that my daughter and Yoss's son and our granddaughter are walking the Kepler track right at this minute together. The second one is last night we watched an amazing TVNZ, it was on TVNZ Demand on K Road. And if you've got the time, that's only 8 little episodes of 8 to 10 minutes. Absolutely incredible. All about the homeless, but in a really positive way, what they're doing and Housing First, and do watch it, it's really good. Third one, yesterday morning at 6:30, I did a 3-hour vigil. There's a tree with a scheduled notable tree. These are trees that are not allowed to be cut down. Well, the council has given an unconsented agreement to a developer to cut down second biggest macrocarpa in the city. It's 9 metres in circumference, and it's at Avondale. And if anyone would like to volunteer, you don't have to trespass, you don't have to climb the tree. You just need to be there we're doing 3-hour slots. I can give you the Facebook one. Yesterday we had lots of people toot their agreement. So far we've protected it from coming down. And even if we lose, this means it highlights the problem we have in Auckland.
Thank you for sharing with us, and I light this candle for all those joys and concerns that are still concerning us, but are shared in silence.
I wasn't quite fast enough.
Sorry.
My name's Jos, and I'm lighting a candle of concern for my ex-wife, Veronica, who's been fighting cancer for a long time, but she's finally been sent home in hospice care. She hasn't got long to go. This is Veronica.
Well, what a shock it was to see the crowds bursting into the Capitol in the United States. It quite swept aside the sermon that I was going to talk about Buddhists and the problems of finding a car park in Auckland before Christmas. I thought you would rather discuss the incidents in America, and so I'm not calling it anything to do with car parking. I'm calling it the American nightmare. One of the biggest surprises to me was that the American police were not ready for it. I just could not believe, after all the talk that had been going on for violence, people in New Zealand were saying there was going to be awful violence. We could see it. Why couldn't the American security forces? President Trump had been talking about it. A Republican election official a month before warned that somebody was going to get killed if their party didn't stop claiming there had been a voting fraud. In the end, it was 5 people who were killed. My third reaction was that although these events were indeed terrible, there were also some good signs. One was that Trump's supporters, some of them, a handful of them, were starting to wake up and were not associating themselves with this protest and saying it was time that Trump accepted that he had lost. I think it is an exaggeration to say that democracy was in danger, but it is still a scary thought that there were only just enough members to stop him. On December the 15th, Joe Biden had only 51% support of the popular vote, but it was only when the last 2 electoral college votes were counted that it became a clear victory. One good bit of news was that the Democrats, already had a majority in the House of Representatives, a sign that the tide was turning against Trump. but there were also 35 senators up for election, and that result was not known until this week. And among the Senate, now it is 50-50 of Republicans and Democrats. So the Democrats are in charge of the Senate only because of the casting vote of Vice President Kamala Harris. There has also been a lot of nail-biting in the last years over the membership of the Supreme Court, which has the power to overturn decisions of the president in some cases. One of the long-lasting acts Trump did as president was to appoint 3 new members to the Supreme Court, giving them a majority of 6 votes to 3. And I think many Americans must have heaved a sigh of relief that these new Republican members of the Supreme Court also they showed proper independence by turning down his numerous challenges to the presidential election. So it seems to me that democracy is winning, but only just. One feature of the Constitution that seems to have done well with the Trump situation is, I think, the media. Not everybody will agree with this, but the media, to a large extent, maintained its independence and went far further than our media usually does by repeatedly calling Trump out for lying and keeping score of his lies. They kept up one newspaper after another, running daily lists of his lies and not mincing their words at all. Another part of that freedom is the social media, which Trump used every day to get his message out. And it was good to see that Facebook banned Trump from its pages. Rather late in the day, I thought, but a move in the right direction. And just yesterday, Twitter did the same. In the last battle before Biden is effectively president will be attempts by the Democrats and a few Republicans to have him impeached for calling for violence this week and saying that he cannot be trusted to keep his hands off the nuclear war button. So it is a scary situation for the people of America. Psychologically, Trump's behaviour is widely regarded as narcissism, the actions of a person who believes the normal rules of justice and honesty just don't apply to them. But the really scary fact about it, I think, is that not only did the bits of machinery in the United States go wrong, but there are still millions of Americans who are obviously supporting Trump's message and probably still do. What will be the future of them, and how will Biden deal with it? And although my sermon about the book of Job is somewhat dated, there are still aspects of this that relate to the election. It too tells of people who believe that God is on their side and that they can do no wrong. I'll read you an outline of the story. It's a very, very complicated book. But in this story, it's just fiction, but Satan sends 5 disasters in a row to Job, who is described as a man whose life is blameless. A group of criminals steal his livestock and kill the servants who are minding them. Then lightning burns up his flock of sheep and the servants who are minding them. Then a raiding party of Babylonians steal his flock of camels and kills the servants who are minding them. Then his sons and daughters were having a party, and a huge wind came across the desert and smashed the house that they were in and killed all of them. And then Job caught a skin disease, which left him sick and disfigured. You would think nobody would blame Job for this, but his friends did. Job said he had had enough. He wishes he had never been born. And the friends stop acting like his friends and stop supporting him and start blaming him and giving him advice in bucket loads. The first friend said Job should be patient and trust God to fix things. The second friend said, how dare you question God? If you act rightly, God will fix things up. And a third friend also said, how dare you challenge God? You are arrogant. And finally, Job's patience runs out, and he comes out with those words, "What miserable comforters you all are. You keep telling lies about me and blaming me for things that are not my fault." And this picture of blame is a big part of what has been going on in America. This also is where my incident with a Buddhist came in before Christmas. Buddhists don't believe that God punishes you when you do something wrong, but some of them believe that if you annoy them, you will pay for it in your next life, rather entertainingly, I think, almost. And I met two of these people 3 weeks ago. I was in the Point Chevalier car park buying some last Christmas presents, and the car park was chock-a-block, and I was driving around looking for the one spare parking place, and I saw it just before the exit. A car was backing out in front of me, and I was thinking, yay, my lucky moment. But the man driving the car saw me there and swore at me and said, "Go away, I'm saving this place for my mother." I couldn't think of any sarcastic enough reply for this, so I just sat there and I thought, I'll see if I can outwait him. And then a woman got out of the car and she started swearing at me as well and said, "You will be in for awful karma." So if one day I die and come back as a spider, it would be because I got the wrong parking spot last year. So all of these religions, Christians, Jews, and Buddhists, have complicated stories of why the world brings us good and bad luck, but they just aren't true. They are wishful thinking of people who like to think the world is always good when it isn't. And I note that many atheists also are capable of finding excuses when things go wrong and blaming those who are suffering. And this kind of blame that Job came in for is very similar to the blaming that Trump has done over his entire presidency, blaming Hillary Clinton, blaming Europe, blaming the media, blaming immigrants, blaming the people of Africa, who said it was full of shithole countries. And I was delighted when some African leaders got back to him and said, "Which is the shithole country now?" So the world has indeed become a scarier place since Donald Trump became president, and it still is. And we should wish the American well as they address these issues in a more rational, humane way. But we should also admit that we have people who act with a sense of entitlement in New Zealand, and we have things that we should be ashamed of in our media, of teenagers ganging up and standing on a roof and pelting people below with bottles, like hundreds of people being infected with bad drugs in a festival, like people showing mass behaviour and protesting against the COVID restrictions. There are plenty of people who show this kind of arrogance. So instead of the questions on the sheet, I would suggest you look at two questions that connect us with what has been going on in America. What can we learn from the scary situation there, and can we share our fears and hopes with each other? At first, let us sing a song which is about supporting others in their strife. Come sing a song with me. I invite you to join with me in the words of extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. What's happening in our community this coming week? Perhaps not much.
Yeah, I'll give a notice. It's dead. It's dead.
Try this one.
Forgot what I was going to say now. Yeah, when we were doing the Zoom services, right, people could often put in the chat comments and they'd put in things that related to the sermon or to the event, which was good. And I always used to put those up on the web page afterwards, so that it kind of rounded out the event. And I still kind of do that with live sermons if there's something I know of. So, for example, today I was watching a documentary recently on the Christmas truce, and which I found quite fascinating. So I will put a link to that up on today's webpage. And if you've got things like that you think would be useful and round out the discussion, then send them to me and they can go up.
Thank you.
Yeah, first there's chrysanthemums down the back. If people want to take them home, they can. And Jenny's collecting bras. If people don't know about that, used bras, or you can buy new bras, and they're going to Fiji. And the girls in Fiji, they just love them. There's a video clip somewhere of them receiving the bras and getting very, very excited about it. It's worth watching. Don't know where it is, Facebook or somewhere like that.
Any other notices? In my closing words, I repeat this benediction. May wisdom guide you, love inspire you, and hope continue with you until we meet again.